The reveal trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows is now finally here. Assassin's Creed Shadows being the new title and name for Codename Red, the long-awaited feudal-era Japan-style game that we've been waiting to see happen is now come to fruition and is finally now here. As we know, we've been waiting for quite a while to get more information and more details on this upcoming Assassin's Creed game, which I have been personally excited for the most, and I'm ready just to get my hands on this for sure. And I do hope this ends up becoming a really good game. I really do hope so. So in today's video, I will be going through everything to discuss about the game. I'll be, of course, obviously putting the trailer for the reveal trailer in the link in the description below, and I'll put also down the link these two related articles from IGN discussing, of course, all the remaining details they got information on about this upcoming Assassin's Creed open world RPG game, which is typically what Odyssey, Origins, and Valhalla was like before, of course, as well as some couple tips to understand and what to expect from this game, including the setting of the game, which is within its time point, all that stuff, the stealth and parkour, combat and RPG systems, as well as dynamic world and seasons, and many assassinations and quests to look forward to when playing in this game. So we're gonna be going through all of this. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, make sure you don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, and tell me your thoughts about the game so far right now from the reveal trailer and all these details. Let me know how excited you guys are for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and if you would be so happy to subscribe, I would appreciate that. It will help support the channel very much indeed. Without further ado, your host, Game Pizza Boy, once again back here for the host of the Pizza Party here on YouTube, ready to get started. Let's talk about some gaming, and let's talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows. So the first article leads into, obviously, reading is called Assassin's Creed Shadows Inside Ubisoft's Ambitious Open World Japan. An IGN exclusive on the new Splinter Cell-like stealth systems, dynamic weather, and gameplay-altering seasons. Feudal-era Japan is the most requested setting in Assassin's Creed's 16-year history. That's what Mark Alexis Code, Vice President Executive Producer of the franchise, tells me in a presentation about Codename Red. Now revealed to be officially titled Assassin's Creed Shadows, it's the game that we finally grant fans their long-held wish. It will provide a deeply detailed digital recreation of Japan in 1579, complete with its legion of samurai, shinobi, and Portuguese merchants, and Jesuit missionaries, if I pronounced that right, brother. If you love this year's Shogun TV series, then Assassin's Creed Shadows is poised to let you bask in that world. To learn more, IGN embarked on an exclusive tour of Ubisoft Quebec studio, where the development team revealed the vision and ambition for their latest game, built specifically for the new generation of consoles. And now we can get to take you into inside Assassin's Creed Shadows and tell you all about its setting, its two playable protagonists, and the dynamic world they live in, where every season promises to change the way you play. And there's a lot, I mean, like an absolutely a lot they're going to be going through. So here's all the details we'll go into. So first thing they do talk about is, of course, the setting of the game. Obviously, it takes place within the 16th century, around the times of the Sengoku period and the peaceful Edo period, around the times when basically the legendary African samurai Yasuke was basically alive around that time, as well as also the mighty daimyo, if I pronounced that right, Oda Nobunaga, as I done my research trying to see this and pronounce their names right. So the details here's right here. As always for an Assassin's Creed game, we try to pick a setting that's pivotal moment in history that can allow us all plenty of gameplay opportunity, explains Stephanie Ann Ruata, world director and historian at Ubisoft Quebec. For Shadows, that pivotal moment is 16th century Japan, specifically the Azuchi Momoyama period, and an era of a transition between the Civil War-stricken Sengoku period and the peaceful Edo period. It would be the last time that samurai would fight a major battle, and the last time they would have had a strictly military role, Ruata adds. With the samurai an active fighting force during the era, it's unsurprising to discover that you'll be playing as one. What is surprising, though, is this samurai's heritage, and at first for Assassin's Creed, Shadows will allow you to play a real historical figure. That's correct. If you know your Japanese history, you may be familiar with Yasuke, the legendary African samurai. Likely born in Mozambique, he was brought in Japan in 1579 as a Jesuit missionary and went on to serve the mighty daimyo Oda Nobunaga. Yasuke is somebody who is going to tie together many of the most powerful figures in our era, says an associate Brooke Davies. He is a really great point of entry to this show as well, with Oda Nobunaga on one side and the other side the Portuguese that he arrives with. He really does a lovely job of connecting the dots historically, what we know factually, and then narratively we had so much fun imagining the kind of person who would have this trajectory. They also go into talking about the, of course, main concept of what this game is going to be featuring, because again, it has obviously similarities to that of 2015's Assassin's Creed Syndicate, with the fact that you could play with 2 characters, not just 1. They explained, through Yasuke's foreigner eyes, Shadows will explore a tale of honor, justice, and belonging. But his isn't the only story you'll experience. Replicating the format of 2015's Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Shadows will feature 2 unique protagonists played in tandem. Starring beside Yasuke is Naoi, if I pronounced that right, a swift and agile shinobi whose talents more closely align with Assassin's Creed traditional hero archetype. The fictional daughter of a real historical figure, Fujibayashi Nagato, Naoi is a very different character to Yasuke, where he's a bullfighter. She's the hidden blade in the shadows. It's through her that Ubisoft are seemingly rediscovering the series' stealth roots in a manner that surpasses even last year's Assassin's Creed Mirage. The thing that shines the most, I feel, in Assassin's Creed, it's really the hidden blade, the assassination. Being able to stay hidden, says game director Charles Benoit. So that's the core that we want to keep. What we need to push forward was to make it feel a bit more modern in the approach. They do then explain, obviously, more details into what to expect when playing, obviously, the shinobi character Naoi, and explain all the details about what you're going to expect from this game, especially for a stealth side of things. They explained that needed modernity has been found in a fully dynamic lighting system in which the radiance from sunlight, torches, and lanterns can illuminate both the land and you, escaping the shadows though and you're invisible. And if you can't escape the light, you can snuff it out. Lamps, or their carriers, can be eliminated to create pools of darkness. If, like me, you were raised on Splinter Cell, this is all very enticing. Parkour has always been something that's pretty iconic and pretty core to the stealth experience because they go hand in hand, adds Jonathan Dumont, Assassin's Creed Shadows creative director. To enhance the parkour, the team has given Naoi a grappling hook. It's all physics-based, so there's a bit of improbability sometimes when using it, he says. There's a danger to using it, but you could also perform assassinations for him. These shinobi skills make Naoi the ideal choice for players who want to get back to an Assassin's Creed that's actually about assassins, but the seeking systems also put other aspects of the stealth genre that Creed has typically ignored. For instance, enemies can now be knocked out, unlocking the option for a more pacifist playthrough. So, as you can see, they're really focused on trying to get back to that nice, similar style of Assassin's Creed, what it was, like feeling like you're an assassin, being sneaky. But there's also one aspect of it, obviously, the most that they're trying to pull other aspects many stealth genres of games have done besides Creed, that Assassin's Creed typically ignore, as said, which includes knocking down enemies. So now you can knock them out very much and do like a pacifist run. So you don't have to just simply just kill a guard and that's it. You can easily just knock them out and there you go, which is pretty cool though. Of course, the RPG era of Assassin's Creed has demanded a robust combat experience too, and that's where Ubisoft plans to let Yasuke shine. We want the combat to feel spectacular, so we've pushed quite a bit on having a lot of the objects destroyable or sliceable, explains Dumont. The upgraded Anvil engine upon which Assassin's Creed Shadows built can now realistically replicate the damage caused by every type of weapon, from accurate sword slices to perfect arrow puncture marks. Think Fruit Ninja, but with almost every prop that's in Shadows world. Of course, the real samurai fantasy comes alive in the Kurosawa-like duels. While Ubisoft Quebec isn't using the legendary director's filmography as a direct influence, they still want that level of tension. When we have a mini-boss type of fighter, we really want it to feel like a duel, says Benoit. So this exchange of blocking, parrying, dodging, so it's always like a dance. For the most part, stealth or combat will be your choice. Each character has a number of personal quests in which they are compulsory to play as, but beyond that, you can freely choose who you control. This goes as far as being able to switch between characters between objectives. That's the beauty, says producer Carl Oni, because during a quest there are several steps and you're going to go from one place to another. If you want to have this autonomy and agency to choose how you want to play the setup. So now we're seeing a little bit more about the idea of what we're hearing basically is the idea about what we're focusing on now with having 2 protagonists again, is that trying to really not only focus on the fact that we can use them to both get around with missions, but we're also seeing how their roles can be played. So earlier when we talked about Naoi, we also know that she's a shinobi, so she plays a role as kind of a ninja, so she's stealth full-on stealth completely. But as we know with Yasuke, being the samurai as he is, that he will obviously play a very more a combat-related role. He will not be playing mostly just full-on just stealth himself, even though I believe he can obviously still be sneaky to catch up to the upper hand of enemies, but instead he will be more of the tank type of threat that can go against anyone with his weapons he has of his choice, basically. So we're seeing the focus on that as not only to the realistic side of things, such as whenever you hit certain objects or armor or any other types of things, you start seeing all the demonstrations of realistic damage, such as, again, when a katana is obviously slicing down onto an object and gives that nice good cut, or obviously whenever an arrow punches through a certain item or armor as well. Just to add the realism as possible to that. Not only that, they also mentioned, again, like I said, is that there will be moments where you will switch characters between objectives, since there are several steps as to go for an objective in a quest, which you'll have to go from one place to another. So it adds a feeling of autonomy and agency to choose how you want to play the setup, of course. So a nice little freedom, obviously, whenever you're obviously choosing that, especially whenever it comes to different quests, and also whenever you're doing certain stealth or combat-related encounters. Now for the best part I wanted to talk about the most is the seasonal gameplay. They explained that much of Shadow's new design is focused on creating a living, reactive world. You can see that in the dynamic lighting and destruction, but there's a much greater system at play. Seasons. The open world progress is through spring, summer, fall, and winter, with each new period bringing its own weather conditions and terrain shifts. While this helps land a sense of realism to land, of course, that makes sense, but dynamic winds will procedurally blow swirls of pollen in the spring and pull leaves from branches in the fall. Each season can also have a dramatic impact on gameplay. We've really been pushed about making sure that gameplay are not separate, but they're intertwining, explains Oni. He offers an example of how in summer you can use the new prone stance to crawl into a pond and hide beneath the surface of the water, but in the winter the pond will be frozen over. You create new and you remove at the same time, different ways and routes of infiltration, he says. So not only they reveal how that changes playstyle right there, so not only the fact that you'll see realism of the look of the land during weather, such as when it's obviously spring, you start seeing all the trees at least leaving the branches and stuff like that, but you also see the effects of what it could do for gameplay, such as when it's winter, the pond will be frozen. They also mention prone stance, which means that there's now a prone system now you can do. So instead of just simply crouching, stuff like that like before, you can now prone now, which will probably come in handy to probably get under, crawl under certain locations, and even also probably just to be more stealth. They also explain as spring blooms, grass grows tall enough to hide in. Bushes become leafy, perfect to crouch behind. But as the months go by, the approaching winter then kills off these natural hiding spots. Hanging icicles threaten to snap and fall, revealing your rooftop position. But at the same time, the worsening weather limits the view of enemies. Howling winds obscure your footsteps. Guard patrols stick to areas of warmth, allowing you to take the new color paths. Players will have to adapt constantly to what the environment is giving them, says Dumont. Seasons will change based on progress of the campaign, which art director Thierry Danacero tells me is to ensure the world stays authentic as possible to match historic events. If it was spring when a certain moment occurred in history, the world will be in the right place. But when an open world side quest, it might happen that you will play a quest in autumn and I will play the same quest and I'm going to be in summer, he says. So that's up to the system and the way you play your game. These seasonal conditions affect the entire map, which covers the central area of Japan, the provinces where Oda Nobunaga organized his stronghold and the unification of the country. In terms of area, the region is similar in size to Assassin's Creed Origins Egyptian map, although based on a more realistic scale ratio, because castles took a lot of space, and we really wanted the amount of mountains to feel like mountains. We've made the environment to feel wider in the games, revealed Dumont. So we now get a little quick, brief information right there that mentions that the entirety of the map, obviously, of Assassin's Creed Shadows will be about a similar size to that of the same map as Assassin's Creed Origins, the normal one as a whole, though on a much realistic scale ratio. So there's going to probably be, obviously, a more realistic size amount to match just around the same size as AC Origins, but also around probably the matchup with something that could be aligned with the areas that you explore in Japan. Not to mention as well, they did this because they want to take a lot of space up for the castles they included, as well as also the fact that they had the mountains that they made in the game, because obviously Japan has a lot, and I mean a lot of mountains in real life, so obviously this is going to fit very well to the scenery. And I can imagine that would be cool to go explore all these mountains too as well, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see where that kind of plays out. Those castles, all prominent historical landmarks, are set to be Shadow's centerpiece dungeons. The way they are built, it's a level designed by itself, enthuses Benoit. It's so big, it's like an adventure each time you go in the castle. Now to move on to the obviously big important part is the concept of the setting, the protagonist, and the world around us that we'll be exploring in Assassin's Creed Shadows. They do explain that Ubisoft, thus very open about Assassin's Creed Shadows setting, protagonist, and world. It's not ready to talk too much about what you actually do. In other words, they did not explain to IGN exactly what the main plot as much about the story is. What little they will say points to a more open, non-linear approach that's focused on killing targets. It's a format that instantly calls to mind the structure of last year's Assassin's Creed Mirage, or the Call of Cosmos web of targets that need to be hunted down in 2018's Odyssey, also developed by Ubisoft Quebec. You'll be free to track your prey in order, and quests will guide you with hints rather than directly point at your objective. One thing that we really wanted is to make sure the world feels alive, and those targets are always in the world, says Benoit. So it's possible that you'll encounter some of them without really knowing about them before. It's less of a, quote, follow a quest up to a point, but it's much more, I want to do this, and then you'll find the way how to do it, says Dumont. He notes that the campaign is still very much objective-based, but the players will have more agency is how they go about things now. This is partly exemplified by a change made to Assassin's Creed iconic synchronization points. Visiting them in previous games used to plot up to a dozen new objectives markers on your map, telling you exactly where to find new activities. In Shadows, they're now simply vantage points to be climbed from which you can look around and spot high-level locations worth seeking out. So we can see what they're coming up with right now. While they won't give us the full detail of what the exact plot of the story is going to be right now as much, seriously, we do know that the whole concept of targeting targets that we kill and the objectives we play will be a more lenient, a little more freedom for us, as they explain that they don't want, that's now less of a follow a quest up to the point, and now more of just simply you want to choose to do this, and you'll find a way to do it yourself. And notice that again, the campaign is still objective based, but now there's a little more agency to the decision, especially to the typical vantage points. As we all know, the Assassin's Creed franchise is a signature for its amazing vantage points, the synchronization points, which commonly would act as a fast travel point, which there still are, but they will now no longer basically act as simply just seeing where the activities are once you already like use the vantage point and then you see on the map. Now they just simply act as just to give you a highlight of these locations worth seeking out, and then you just drop down and you can go ahead and go to them to go see if you can counter them, of course. So it will not act the same way completely as what it was before, but it still has its main goal of what it's supposed to be doing, acting as a fast travel point, a viewpoint, and also just giving you some guidance on some objective-based stuff. Finally, wrapping up, they do explain, as for the targets themselves, I'm hoping that Shadow's renewed stealth values will mean it offers a worthy successor to the Hitman-esque black box missions from Assassin's Creed Unity, in which kill quests featured multiple methods of dispatching your prey. Ubisoft won't indulge my curiosity, but Dumont thinks people will like some of the variety that we try to put in our targets, and notes that there will be options to be able to take them down and having some negatives and sometimes some surprises. During the studio tour, they all were offered very few glimpses of actual gameplay. They watched the game designer take Yasuke for a test drive to showcase his combat abilities. It's a far cry from the perfect shinobi swordplay of Sekiro, but does look like an appropriately retooled version of Assassin's Creed RPG fight system. Parries turn into strikes that break enemy armor plates, and a chain of attacks conclude in a flat decapitation finisher move. The developer then switches to Naoe, who fends off a group of attackers using a Kursarigama, swinging its chain in wide arcs to enforce space between her and her foes. At another desk, Naoe takes down unsuspecting foes by hiding in the rafters, Sam Fisher style, and impales enemies through shoji paper doors. It's all barely a taste, but it's promising. A substantial gameplay reveal I suspect will arrive with this year's Ubisoft Forward presentation on June 10th. Hopefully that's where we'll see how many of the fascinating dynamic systems combine with the series, traditions, and tropes, and provide the first proof of the Assassin's Creed Shadows is the Shinobi sim that so many fans have been waiting for. A long wait that's almost over. Shadow launches on November 15th of this year. Now, I covered everything in that one article, but I want to go through now this next article right here that explains Assassin's Creed Shadows for the details you need to know. This is just a full detail of almost everything else we explained, but maybe just some other bits I want to mention as well that were pretty interesting that I want to kind of put in mind in case you don't see it and you want to kind of get a little idea about. This will include a couple of categories, including the setting, the stealth and parkour, the combat and RPG systems, the dynamic role and seasons, and the assassinations and quests. So these are all details that we've already read before, as well as some additional ones. So you'll be seeing me repeat a few things, but I just want to kind of get through it all to kind of get a brief understanding of it all. And then I'll give you my final thoughts before we wrap things up. So first we'll get into it is obviously the setting, where they explain obviously what to expect from the story and stuff like that. Again, they didn't give probably full details on what to expect as the main plot, but they do explain the era and what to expect for obviously the main story itself of its main characters, with them saying that Assassin's Creed Shadows takes place, of course, in obviously 1579 during feudal era Japan, in the Azuchi Momoyama period of Japanese history. It begins in 1759 and will continue into the early 1580s, and the time period means that this is the first game in the series that will feature the Assassins Templars in their classic forms, at least since 2015's Assassin's Creed Syndicate, since that was the last time we've ever saw anyone wearing classic more designs of clothing, so that rather than just simply the ones we have seen now, which are more like very, very early kind of designs of clothing that we've seen from Valhalla, Odyssey, and obviously Origins. A number of historical figures play prominent roles in the campaign. These include Oda Nobunaga, the great unifier of Japan, and even Fujibayashi Nagato, the master ninja of the Iga clan. Much like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Shadows features two protagonists that you could be switched between them as you play the campaign. Like Syndicate, the first that deals that these dual leads is Naoi, who will be the fictional daughter of Fujibayashi Nagato, skilled trained by her father to be a skilled shinobi, a ninja, and Yasuki, a real historic figure for the first time we're actually going to play in Assassin's Creed, who originally came from Africa, and Yasuke came to Japan with the Portuguese in 1579 and soon became a samurai in the employ of Lord Oda Nobunaga. Then we go into stealth and parkour. There's quite a lot to go through here, so bear with me. They mention at first is the same thing we already talked about in the previous one, where obviously light and dark is a major part of the stealth system of Assassin's Creed Shadows. A new global illumination system which will create dynamic light and shadows that affect enemy vision. You can now hide in shadows and even create darkness by destroying lanterns or killing torch carriers. A light meter on the UI shows how well concealed you are, from fully visible to completely hidden. Kind of like the Thief games, if you think about it. If you ever played Thief, that game basically where it has that little light blue symbol right there on the bottom left and stuff like that, or wherever it is from the that last game they played. Yeah, it's like that game basically almost. It's just like with that little icon. Servants are a new type of NPC, ranking between civilians and enemies. While they cannot fight, they are able to call reinforcements and raise alarms. They have their own patrol routes and carry lanterns at night. So it's another type of enemy they decided to add called servants, and they're basically not a very threatening enemy, but one that will easily alert any enemies nearby and will raise alarms and call for reinforcements if they catch you on sight, most likely in an area you shouldn't be in, or something that you're doing that's obviously made them aware of danger. So be mindful with dealing with servants. There's now the option to knock out foes when performing stealth takedowns, allowing for a more passive playthrough. You can crawl around the ground in prone position, allowing you to maintain a lower profile as well as get through small openings. Naoi has a grappling hook that can be attached to every roof edge, as well as a number of other anchor points. Now, they also do mention this, that unlike the zipline grappling hook from AC Syndicate, this rope uses physics simulation to allow dynamic swing. So obviously, there's a little more realistic feeling it looks to the design of the rope, so it looks like it's obviously, you know, having good same physics as you would do with a rope as if you tie it up or throw it above somewhere. So similar physics right there, including dynamic swing. The grappling hook can also be used to quickly climb into the ceiling above corridors, allowing you to lay in wait for enemies patrolling beneath you. So you can use it to help you get up to this climb to the ceiling and just hide there in the corner of the ceiling in the corridors, which is pretty cool. So you can use the ceiling as your hiding spot. That's pretty dope if you ask me. Eagle Vision also returns for the first time in a while right there. Eagle Vision is like a signature type of way to kind of see enemies and all that stuff. We haven't seen that in quite a while in the major games in a while bit, which allows you to spot silhouettes of NPCs through walls. Enemies will be marked in red, and the new servant and NPC will be colored orange, and most likely blue will be for the normal civilians and green, I believe, maybe, or something like that, I think, for your allies. So that's gonna be pretty cool to see that return again, Eagle Vision. The drone-like bird used in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla to scout out areas and mark targets is not available in Shadows. You'll need to do your own reconnaissance work. This, I'm actually pretty excited at the fact that they actually removed this. So obviously, if you played Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, you know that obviously the main protagonists, characters have like birds, which they use to help you track down enemies and kind of scan around the area. And while it was cool and helpful, I find it a little bit too easy to get around and understand very easily. So this idea of this doing your own reconnaissance work, like the old games, because in the older games before Origins, you never had any way to find enemies. You had to use like eagle vision for it, or at least look around, keep an eye out for a lot of the threats yourself. So this is nice to know that we have a way to see about trying to look around, mark targets, scout areas. But now it's more of like, now we start moving ourselves. Now we have to start look around and doing our own work, not just letting some bird do it. So this is pretty nice to have right here. And finally, for the stealth and parkour category, as a shinobi, Naoi is the most skilled at stealth, and Yosuke can use stealth, but his size and armor plating means he's better at using those skills to get the drop on targets rather than performing fully silent infiltration. Moving on now to combat and RPG systems. They explain in this category, this era of Japanese warfare did not make use of shields, so your gear does not include any defensive options aside from armor. Dodges and positioning is paramount, and this is correct and accurate to the pretty much history of within Japanese warfare. There were no shields barely used in this point of history right here. Most of them only used armor as their protection, so the only way to defend yourself is trying to really parry and block a lot of the attacks and do a lot of positioning and dodging a lot. So you have to get used to not really now using shields anymore now. So if you're going to protect yourself, get ready to move quick and prepare to position yourself for many attacks against multiple, if not few enemies. So be ready for that. As a samurai, Yosuke is able to use his weapon to block incoming attacks and perform parries. Naoi is able to engage in combat, but she's unable to block or parry. Instead, she can deflect enemy blows. Ubisoft didn't clarify the difference between parries and deflects, but it may be that parries enable counterattacks while deflects are a more evasive tactic. So we get a good full detail about what to expect when it comes to combat on both different characters, with Yosuke obviously being the one to be able to have the most being good at combat, as we know, able to use his weapon, his own, to easily just block incoming attacks and perform parries to pretty much stun and take out enemies. But Naoi, being the stealthy person it is, she can engage in combat, but she obviously is very limited with the unable ability to block or parry, but she can simply deflect enemy blows, which so far it seems like Ubisoft didn't give a full clear answer on what these are about between parries and blows. But I guess with parries, we all know what that is, just simply to counter enemy attacks. But deflects, I guess most likely is like an evasive maneuver, like dodging or something like that. So we can imagine something like that possibly is what they're trying to refer to. Enemy armor has a durability system and can be broken during combat. So obviously we see here is that we're going to be seeing obviously armor playing a big role for the enemies like usual. So as you would see here, we're now seeing armor playing a big role in this situation, with enemy armor basically having durability now as a system that you have to deal with to break down the armor during combat in order to pretty much reach the weak spot to take them out. Pretty much every prop in the game is able to be dynamically damaged by your weapons. Katanas will slice through bushes and baskets through ninja style, leaving accurate blade marks, and arrows will leave precise puncture marks, while blunt weapons will smash pots into tiny pieces. Many period accurate weapons are available to be used, such as katanas, the Konobo War Club, the Yari Spears, the Shurikens, the Kunais, and the Kusarigma, which is the sickle on a chain, like I mentioned earlier. Yosuke is able to use arquebus rifles, which a lot of samurais in that day actually really loved the guns a lot when it was kicking off, providing him with a powerful long-range weapon. So Yosuke will have another pretty cool long-range weapon to use. Each weapon has its own skill tree, investing time into using a particular weapon, which will improve your efficiency with it. So a skill tree will be introduced in the game too that will be available for weapons. So that means, I guess, every time you get a new weapon, you can then obviously use it to your advantage, and I guess as you keep playing, you'll be able to unlock skills for it and invest time to making it to a certain particular way you want it to be, basically. You can also craft your own katana from gathered components and personalize it. A transmog system will also allow you to tailor your gear to look exactly what you want. So you can, I guess that means crafting will be back here, of course, to make what you want, as well as also how you want to make it look, especially. Active combat skills will return too and are unlocked by finding ninja scrolls in the world. So our first collectible right there, ninja scrolls, which you will find to help you unlock new skills throughout the game, of course. That will be special cool moves that you can do against your threats and enemies to counter them in combat and stealth. And Yasuke and Naoi have individual skill trees and gear, but share XP, collected weapons, and resources, just like Syndicate. Again, like Syndicate, because back in that game, they would also have individual skill trees and gear that are separate in their own way, but they both, of course, with XP that you earn and level up, will share the same, as well as the weapons they collect and the resources they collect as well. So nice, cool little situation right there to see that there is quite a lot of familiarity to that with Syndicate doing. They're basically copying off what they have done with Syndicate before, or Syndicate has done before, obviously, and now we're going to see where that plays out for this new game. Now, moving on to Dynamic World and Seasons, which we discussed a little bit earlier, but there's some more details that are pretty cool as well that involves the NPCs you'll be encountering in other situations with the seasons. This includes Assassin's Creed Shadows is built upon a newly updated version of the Anvil game engine, like we mentioned. The new tech allows for better lighting through global illumination, the new breakable props, more detailed asset meshes, and much less pop-in. We already know that. The new Anvil upgrade has allowed for a season system that sees the world progress through spring, summer, autumn, and winter. The current season is dictated by your progress through the campaign in order to maintain historical accuracy, but there are steps that each period goes through to create a sense of authenticity as well. Each season comes with unique features that link to gameplay. For example, in the spring and summer, when plants bloom and flower, there will be bushes and long grass to hide in, and later in autumn and winter, those plants will die and thus remove hiding spots. Water also freezes in the winter, which prevents you from entering pools and ponds, and icicles will form on rooftop edges and can fall if disturbed, potentially giving away your position. Seasons also affect NPC behaviors, which in the summer, enemy samurai will cut through bushes in search of you, and in the winter, foes will stay close to fires and warm places, potentially opening up new colder paths for you to take. A full dynamic weather system also provides appropriate climate conditions based on both the region and even the season, with severe weather, deep fog, howling winds, and snow impacts enemy sight and sound, and a storm, which is an opportunity to mask your footsteps. So pretty cool right there to know that you can have like a nasty severe weather storm going off, which you can use to your advantage to sneak past enemies or take them out. The world features a surprisingly detailed ecology system. In spring, for example, which will blow gusts of pollen that have been spawned by trees, replicating a real ecosystem. The map is similar in size to that featured in Assassin's Creed Origins and replicates the central region of Japan. So obviously the map being similar size like we mentioned before, obviously. The map is divided into regions based on Japan's real historical provinces, including Iga, the home of the shinobi, Arima, the location of a major battle, and Ombi, an agriculture breadbasket region. The iconic synchronization points return, but in a reimagined way. Climbing to the top no longer plots a multitude of icons on your map, nor does it trigger the spinning drone shot of the area, which kind of disappoints me a little bit because I always enjoyed that nice little spinning drone shot a lot, honestly. Instead, from this vantage point, you'll be able to survey for highlight points of interest, which you can then seek out on when back on the ground. Ubisoft expressed a wish for that to be less icons this time around, and so that appears to be the one of the ways of fulfilling it. Thankfully, despite the slight change, synchronization points will act as a fast travel location, so don't feel worried that you have no way to travel back in and out if you got a long distance. You can still fast travel to these vantage points anytime that you claim. It's just now going to be where you won't see a lot of icons anymore when you do your viewpoints. It will not stay permanently, it will just pretty much go away until you go back up there and stand up on the vantage point again, basically. And finally, Shadows is set during a time of flourishing urbanization, trade, and warfare. And this allows for a wide range of locations, towns, trading posts, farmland, and colossal castles that have been rendered at a near 1.1 scale. Beyond these settled areas are mountains and forests. So we're going to see obviously a lot of that expansion to hopefully include these different towns and areas you can travel, these trading posts and farmlands you can explore, and the castles you can go into, but also within that same position to kind of fit to the real scale and size of what Japan is basically for those locations, especially since in fact all the open area are mostly just mountains and forests as a whole. So we're going to see that basically expand upon to the right size to make it feel authentic to that what Japan basically is usually in its own size in real life. And finally, last but not least, the last category is the Assassination Quest ones, which includes the Shadow features a non-leader campaign largely focused on targets, as we mentioned before, and Ubisoft says that you'll be free to track these targets in any order. We already know that. Some targets simply exist in the world. You may stumble upon them organically without having researched and hunted them first. Others have more structure infiltration style gameplay attached to them, so not only there's a lot more better structure ideas to the style of how to infiltrate certain parts of the game and as a whole, but also the fact that many targets can just simply exist and you'll just stumble upon them anyway. So So even though you'll run into someone right now without having researched them, they actually will be right there, and you'll eventually find out soon enough as you keep progressing. But obviously you can still do something if you want to, but there will be certain, I guess, effects, as we know, certain negative and other surprising effects as a whole that will obviously play out if you end up doing something out of the blue right there. So you gotta be very careful with that. Ubisoft also aims a way to create more rewarding journey by being a little more hands-off. While the campaign still gives more objective focus, the studio hopes to enable more player autonomy by using hints to push players in the right direction rather than outright telling them where to go next. So obviously, again, the main goal right there is just making still the objective focus on the main campaign, but everything else in general is meant to be just simply not to push you in the right direction or just telling you not to where you were to go in that way, but still just giving you hints to tell you where you need to go, but just trying to let you figure out yourself. So trying to give you ideas about what you should be doing, but not outright telling you in the direction as a whole. Most main quests can be complete as either Yasuki or Naoi, allowing for freedom approach. So you can obviously choose to do a certain mission either as Yasuki or Naoi whenever you feel free, however, both characters also have their own specific missions playable only by them, as well as bespoke introduction quests. So you'll be able to play as both of them for many missions, but not every mission though. So certain missions you will have to switch to either Yasuki or Naoi, of course, if that's so choose to. Side quests and world activities will be available beyond the main campaign. Notable things include castles, temples, shrines, and art, which will probably be a type of collectible you can find. Shrines, probably you can obviously explore. Castles, temples, all that kind of stuff, which will probably hold secrets to get more extra loot and items, and probably to complete objectives for the 100%. You could build up a spy network with agents who could be sent on missions to gather intelligence on your targets, which will most likely be similar to that when you sent your own assassin novice-like groups basically out to do missions and you get them leveled up and stuff like that and get more resources. So obviously we're seeing a little bit of similarity to Black Flag when you send your own brigade, your own ship fleet out, or even also like in Assassin's Creed Revelation and Brotherhood, where you can send other novice assassins to go out and obviously complete missions and hunt down targets yourself. So in this way, you have your own base basically. There's a hideout where you and allies can gather, of course, and this hideout will most likely be where you can obviously set up your spy network and send missions out to gather intelligence on your targets. So that's pretty cool too as a way, and you probably make them stronger, which will help you complete more missions with ease. So that's pretty cool though. So with that is everything to talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows. So my final thoughts, I'll say just so far, while this is still obviously just simply a reveal trailer, no gameplay shown whatsoever, all the details I've read from IGN's reports on this, and based on what we can tell from the trailer, there's definitely a lot to look forward to for this game. I'm definitely looking pretty much hyped for this. I definitely am pretty excited for finally that we're actually getting this era of now shown in Assassin's Creed. And while I want to wait until June 10th to see, hopefully that we'll get more details on this as soon as possible, and I really hope this is good. Again, we don't know how this is going to play out, so only time will tell, but let me know what you guys think about this game in the comments below. Definitely let me know. I'm pretty excited for this. I think a lot of the stuff is pretty cool. Probably the most coolest part about the game I'm excited for is the return of much more of the stealth. I've been waiting to get back to that kind of similar type of stealth in any Assassin's Creed game in quite a while, especially how much improved it will be, and probably besides that whole pacifist style of knocking people out, and also the fact that you can use the shadows and stuff like that. There's probably gonna be a lot more we'll be expecting that was not shown off or announced by any of the many different articles and other related journalists that probably looked into this, of course. And I do love the season dynamic world, especially too. The idea with the seasons changing up how the world will be affected and stuff like that. I'm excited about that. Not just for the look and design, what the whole beauty of feudal era Japan will be like, but also just seeing how the hell it will play out in the gameplay. So I want to see how that goes through. I definitely want to find out. So it's going to be pretty intriguing to figure out what will happen, especially when you go do a mission on winter and how it affects in certain situations when dealing with enemies, because obviously going on roofs will alert you with the icicles dropping down of buildings and stuff like that, or the summer or the spring when you can hide in grass and see if you can take advantage of that when patrols are nearby. So it'll be pretty interesting. And then finally, the return of a more double duo assassin team up right there. We'll see how Yasuke and Naoi plays out very much, for one being stealth and one being more combatant. So it's going to be interesting to find out how this plays out. So pretty excited for this. But let me know what you guys thought about this. I hope you guys enjoyed and found this pretty helpful. Again, I'll put the trailer and all in these 2 articles in the description below so you can go read them for yourself. Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, if you obviously found this helpful and tell me what your thoughts about the game. I want to hear your thoughts on it for sure. There'll probably be some good points I want to hear that I never mentioned, or maybe something I would like to hear you guys out for. And as always, if you found the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I would appreciate that very much indeed. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all your amazing support. I'm your host, Game Pizza Boy, host of the Pizza Party, and I will see you guys next time. Take care, my friends, and have a good rest of your day.